I'm just gonna start recording, but we'll cut this out.
Time stamping?
I will timestamp it. Yeah.
You're time stamping? Okay.
Yes.
Can you also please pull up that document?
Yes.
Thank you.
Let me do that.
What doc? Oh, that doc? Oh, that part of the doc.
You know, that doc.
That specific part of the very long doc that is actually really hard to navigate. Why do you guys prefer?
Ask him.
Why do you prefer Google Docs to Word?
I use Notion actually.
Well, the docs isn't the problem. It's that he combined it all into one doc. That's his doing.
It helps with
because
the
That should be
organization.
8 different docs in
For
one folder.
you.
No, but it.
for you. But there's 5 other people, well, who should be using the drive. Yes, it's great when there's docs titled letter.
See, look how nicely organized this is.
Yeah, that should all be separate.
So this is
docs.
that what you want, the operational protocol?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, yeah.
I just want to go back to Shannon Farrell. Wind and or energy and wine. I'm going to have to tell him that he's the expert on wine.
Okay.
Shannon's one of my great friends.
Put that.
It should be wind probably.
Josh is supposed to.
Don't worry about that. I just thought it was funny because
We have some other people we thought about like bringing on.
he would be a great one.
Awesome. I'll have to get him next. Yeah, here's operation.
And tell him that I did it, and he needs to, if I can handle it, he can. Tell him I said if I can handle it, he can handle it. No, he's a regular, he testifies before Congress on policy issues and stuff. So yeah, that'd be a great one.
Wine.
So once again, my name is Jason. I'll be the IT guy. I'm just here to make sure everything's going smoothly. So I won't be talking as much. Elliot will be the main host, and JR is the supporting host. He'll ask some questions. You're into constitutional law and stuff.
Well, not specifically. I just like arguing about politics and stuff, including constitutional
He just
stuff.
wants to argue. Huh?
Yes.
Well, it's the debate club, right?
Yes.
But yeah, Elliot, it's on you.
All right. So, how's everybody doing today?
Is that a question for me?
That is a question for you.
For everybody?
That's a question for everybody.
I just want the day to be over because then I can go to sleep and
Oh, man.
I don't have the dread of what will transpire in 5 hours.
You're not excited about football?
Are you?
I'm just excited because I get to go hang out with Riley.
So when you say what's going to transpire in 5 hours, you're saying the football game and the result
Yes,
of it.
and
Got it.
the
Okay.
people I will go with, we will all leave somewhat depressed because we will have been exposed to another 3.5 hours of absolute mediocrity that gives us no hope for anything in the future.
Who are we playing?
Tulsa.
Tulsa?
How do you
Okay.
not know this? Do better.
JR, we're not into football as you.
Yeah, it's been a weird week.
It's just game day.
I went on a
period.
whole rant to my grandmother yesterday about how I get to claim OSU fandom because I got called loser and such last year, who won't be able to pay for anything, and I will never do anything constructive with my words or whatever. So
There's a lot there to
whatever the
unpack there,
Gundy
JR.
rant was, I kind of forgot it, but now I will use it forever and ever.
Well, yeah. I mean, nobody likes to not be good.
Yeah.
But, like, what if we win? I know it's not likely.
Well, we
but
beat
what
UT
if?
Martin, and we all still left depressed. And if any of us watched the entire first half of Oregon, that ruined your entire weekend, I would hope.
I did not watch Oregon.
I mean, I think there's
I
something.
am exaggerating here somewhat.
I think there's some wisdom in sometimes you play games. There's more to lose than gain, and this would be one of those.
I just want to say, so within the silence, by the way, anytime anyone messes up and you want to cut, we can cut it, right? If you like something awkward happens and there's a moment of silence, we can just edit that out. So
Sounds
no
great.
problem. Yep.
Awesome.
But
I don't know. I'm pretty comfortable in my own silences. But if you guys need to do that, that's fine.
Yeah.
Can you please enlarge the operational protocol? Because I can't read that.
yes.
Thank you, Jason.
Protocol? Yeah, okay.
All right. I just keep forgetting what the bottom part says.
You don't have to stick to that, by the way.
You don't have to stick to
I
it.
don't have to
It's
stick to
conversational, right?
I got
It is
on to Jason
conversation,
yeah.
a year ago about how rigid that was.
Oh, so I apologize.
Well, if I'm tuning in for the first time and I don't know who you are, it helps to remind people who they are. Mm-hmm. That's good. I mean, do you guys listen to podcasts that often?
Yes.
Fairly often, especially when I'm bored and I have nothing better to do.
Well,
Like if I'm just doing some kind of administrative work, as far as
What podcast do you listen to?
I was going to say
a lot of the Daily Wire ones.
Okay.
But I've got a couple
I
of
like
college football
Freakonomics.
ones too.
Okay.
Freakonomics.
I like the Freakonomics ones, and then I like one that's called The Prosecutors, which is true crime, but it's all very,
I've
very
heard of that
legal.
one.
I like that one.
The C Squared podcast sometimes.
You are so academic. And serious.
Well, no, that's a
Joe Rogan.
that's a chess podcast.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So as big an OSU fan as you are, there's no football podcast in there? Or?
There's Josh Pate's podcast, but I never listened to it all the way through. I generally don't have the time. But like on YouTube, I'll watch a lot of football stuff, and I am a regular looking at Pokes Report and Pistols Firing, and
Okay.
I've got WWLS
Yeah.
in my car whenever I'm driving, so which is also depressing.
Might as well
'cause-
be a podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, that works. I listened to them this morning. They were, they talk an awful lot about OSU right now.
Yeah, probably not in a good way.
Oh, I mean, they just talk. I mean, sometimes it's better than
know.
others.
I wish they'd talk more and less about OU, but what can I say?
That's what I mean. We're newsworthy right now for different reasons, maybe than you want.
All right.
Why can't we go back to the glory days of like 2 Novembers ago?
I was going to say it wasn't that long ago.
Okay, everybody.
Game day should bring us out.
Jared, what are you looking at me for?
No, because neither of you were at Bedlam a couple of years ago. I was.
I wasn't even in school here
that
at that
was
time.
that was the
I was
crowning
there.
achievement of like
Of everything.
a while.
Of the world. I mean,
Also
I
all
went
of
there
the
when we play
intoxicated
I went there
consequences.
when we play Ohio or something. I forgot.
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati, yeah.
Yeah, with Josh.
With Josh sitting at the nice.
Yeah, you didn't even have to endure the terrible elements
the
that
rain,
was.
Yes, the atmosphere.
No, like my hands like literally started freezing to the point where I like could not type on my phone. Like
Yeah.
wasn't even that cold. It was just wet and
Just
windy.
I was
and
in there nice.
miserable, and you couldn't sit down because
Luxurious.
then your clothes would get soaking wet on
Yeah.
the bleachers.
Right.
All right, everybody.
Give a few moments.
Good
of silence.
good icebreaker.
Okay, great icebreaker. Welcome back to the Oklahoma State Debate Podcast. This is Elliot White coming to you from Oklahoma State. We are with Professor Ruby, and co-host is JR.
J.R. Stitt Bethune alongside
So,
with
Professor Ruby, what brought you to
Good
OSU?
afternoon. Is it afternoon? Yeah, it's 1:00.
technically yes.
What brought me to OSU? Which time? Let me think here. So, my first memory of coming to OSU, probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old, probably coming to baseball games. You were talking kind of about football a lot. I came to a lot more baseball games as a kid, obviously just because there were more of them. But we would literally come and when I was a little boy, OSU baseball was in the World Series every year, and even when they weren't the best team, they seemingly always won. And so we spent a lot of time at the baseball park, and I've been coming to OSU ever since. I graduated as an undergrad here from OSU, and went to law school at OU, and then went to work in Tulsa for several years, and kind of fell backwards into teaching as an adjunct here on campus, teaching an undergraduate law class, and 16 years later, I'm still here doing it, just a little more often. So,
Do you still go up there to Obrate for baseball games now, or?
Oh yeah. My son is 13, and he's a big baseball guy, and so yeah, we've been to baseball since we've been back. We moved back about 16 years ago, and we do it all though.
I grew up in Philadelphia, and I'm a massive Phillies fan. Like, I remember at night listening to the radio, to the broadcasts on 94 WIP, and like trying to stay awake till like 10, 11 o'clock when games were on the West Coast. Went to a few games. Fantastic. The Mets have been vanquished again.
So are you too young to remember the John Kruk Phillies?
Oh, yeah, no. The teams he played on anyway. John Kruk as a broadcaster is amazing.
Well, I just have to think. I mean, I've been here for 16 years, so and I have a hard time. The time stamps of those memories are. But they were what they call them. They were. Anyways, that was a good crew though.
Something in beer bellies, I think.
Yeah, they were not the most politically correct.
No, but they were the most Philadelphia
hygienically correct. Anything you want, Yeah, they were Philly, huh? That's what you're saying.
Yeah. Like I've read books, and people have said that was one of the best, like, just personifications of Philadelphia in a long time.
Well, that's cool.
If ever.
Okay.
On the field. I'm too young to remember the, like, 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11 Phillies. Like, I started listening in 2012 when things went south.
So what about the Eagles? I mean, they're kind of the big story in Philly now.
Before we moved to Philadelphia, I was a Giants fan.
Which
was great when they won the Super Bowl in 2012. But it's really bad when you're in a town where if you win, people will paint your car green without your permission and, climb light poles and shoot fireworks off in Center City. And, yeah, it's...
The cost of success, right?
All of their success has been since I've left, for which I'm thankful.
Okay.
But, yeah. I mean, Philadelphia is great, too, not just for its sports, but, like, for me. Like, we'd go around to Valley Forge and
absolutely,
Germantown and Brandywine, Trenton, where Washington crossed to Delaware. I think we went to Gettysburg. Once. I don't know how far that is away, though.
It's not that far.
But
it's a train ride. I've made the train ride from around Gettysburg to Philly before, actually.
We should have done that. We didn't do that. We drove, but we should have taken the train.
Great history, though. And I was actually going to say, I mean, you bring up the Phillies, but really, you were mentioning off there your interest in politics and, the Constitution and things like that. You kind of have a natural advantage over a lot of people about the history.
For which I'm grateful.
Yeah.
So...
you said your undergrad was at OSU. What did you major in?
Well, so I majored in, so I came to OSU as a chemical engineering major and had a really great opportunity with a program that was funded then by Phillips 66. And I, at that point in time, I'd be interested to know if school was the way it is now if I would have changed. But in those days, we didn't have our own computers typically, let alone having the world in our hand, basically. And so if we wanted to go work on computers and, use this thing called email and the internet and all that stuff, you had to go down in a deep, dark basement and spend a lot of time down there. And I just, at that point in my life, I really was I just enjoyed being around people and having a little more interaction than what I was having. And I actually started working in a restaurant and had some people that had gone through what was then the hotel and restaurant program. And it's actually has historically and still is the highest rated global program on this campus. So it's a pretty esteemed program. And I just went and visited and started talking to him about what it was, and I actually started managing a restaurant here locally and just kind of made my way. And so my degree was actually in hotel and restaurant administration. What I figured out was that I really didn't have the creativity to own a restaurant. But I really enjoyed the numbers, and I really enjoyed, the things that drew me to engineering. I found in finance basically, and so I traveled and did internships at places like Arthur Andersen in Chicago, when they had a consulting arm that was doing consulting for big hotel chains. And then I went to work for a company in Houston that did the same thing. Basically, what I loved about it was these really creative people. I got to help them understand if their ideas were going to make money, and did it through data before we knew what data is now. I mean, that means something completely different than it did then. And but in that process, 9/11 happened. And being from Philly, you can understand this, is that, when the world kind of stopped, what I figured out was that everything that I was working on, somebody that sat in New York had the ability to basically say, no, this is really how it works. And I didn't like not owning my own information, if that makes sense. And when I figured that out, it kind of sent me on a path of, well, how do I do something that I kind of I don't need to be the expert on everything, but I'd like to be the expert on what I know. And I don't remember who it was, but somebody suggested, well, that sounds like what being a lawyer is. So I actually took a job in a mailroom at a law firm in Oklahoma City just to see what that meant. And I loved it. And so the rest is history, I guess. I signed up for the LSAT to try to get in and had no idea what that meant. I wasn't a kid that went through all of college thinking, okay, this is a step I take, this is this, this is this. I was, thank goodness for the pre-law advising here at OSU for somebody that had figured out they wanted to be a lawyer for about 10 minutes, because they figured out how to get me into school and into the school I wanted to go to. And I met some of my best friends. I know this is OSU game day, and I mean, clearly I'm here with orange and black on, but some of my best friends are people that I met at law school down at OU and still are, and as JR shakes his head. But yeah, my wife and I, my wife, she was getting her master's in speech pathology and was doing that in Dallas. So we kind of tried to figure out, okay, Dallas, Tulsa, Oklahoma City. I'm from Enid, considered that, and we landed on Tulsa. And just like I said, we just ever since then kind of just fallen backwards into some great things.
So you're in, what aspect of business law are you in?
Well, so my practice before I came back to teach. I think it's important to know that I'm not a research faculty member. I'm a professor of practice. Now that doesn't mean, every time I write something in a brief, I, do legal research. But my practice, before I came here, my full-time practice in Tulsa was 95% litigation. And that was at the trial level, appellate level, federal, state. I didn't actually go to the United States Supreme Court, but I've been to the 8th Circuit and I've been to the 10th Circuit, and worked on cases that, part of the case was in Washington County up in Bartlesville, and the other part was in Sedona, Arizona at the same time. So, it definitely, complex litigation was my full-time practice. And, I actually kept my practice at the same law firm when I came back to teach, just on a smaller scale, which was really fun, because if you go from working on 35 files to 3, it's amazing how much you can focus.
Yeah.
So that was really fun, actually. And then, we kind of figured out that, Stillwater could be home. I know we all love Stillwater, but, it's different to think about Stillwater as a college kid and as hey, this is where I'm going to, raise my family. And, but we lived here a year, and I liked it quite a bit. And so I have served as of counsel at a local firm here for a long time, and I would consider my current practice a general practice, in that I like to be able to help people around the community, but my bigger cases, if you will, still revolve around some form of business issue, whether or not it be breach of contract, whether or not it be, insurance company, litigation, whether or not it be, just any number of things, convenience store stuff, just whatever it is.
So what's your favorite part of being a lawyer?
That no day is the same. It's kind of cliche, but it's true that, law is a practice. What it means by law as a practice is that, you never know exactly what the answer is. I was at a hearing yesterday, and I felt really good about the evidence that I put on, the witnesses that I put on. I knew that I had done what I was supposed to do. But until the judge decided what he decided, I didn't know what was going to happen. And, so I think some days that'll drive you crazy, but at the end of the day, I think there are so many things in life that are kind of just on rinse and repeat. And there's some value in that. There really is. But just as, the true north of what I would do, the fact that I have to figure it out differently every time is really fun. So
that does sound like fun.
I do spend quite a bit of time teaching you guys now. So I do spend less time doing that. I often tell people I say, and it's jokingly, but but if I ever get tired of students, I go work with clients. If I get tired of clients, I go work with students. And you guys are both better served by that. But no, I enjoy both quite a bit.
So you actually teach my business law class this year.
I'm loving every minute of it.
I was curious, what is your favorite section of that class to teach? Like, what's your favorite unit?
Well, I tend to feed off of you guys. I don't mean to not answer, but like if I'm talking about something that really hits home with you guys, that's meaningful to me, and it's changed over the years. So I can remember writing one of my first lecture outlines was when President Obama was on his inauguration train, right? And take the politics out of it. I don't mean to, but you have your first black president going on the trail that Lincoln went on the train, and I'm sitting there writing about civil rights. I'm at a restaurant having a cup of coffee, and I'm like, this is pretty cool that I get to do this, And so I do have moments that are like that, but it's not necessarily, I would say that the subject is what it is, right? But the surrounding pieces of it, and you guys are the main surrounding piece of that. What it means to that moment is pretty cool. And like we talk about, when we were talking about amendments the other day. When I started teaching, the idea that everybody in our class would, I go down and say, okay, who knows what the First Amendment is, just offhand? People raise their hand. Who knows what the Second Amendment is? Well, now every single person raises their hand about the Second Amendment. 16 years ago, that wouldn't have been the case. It just shows you what is the issue of the day, right? Ask what the 14th Amendment is. You say, well, everybody's heard of it, but they don't necessarily think, they don't have the confidence to know what it is, and that's okay too. But I would say, my favorite part is really kind of experiencing that with you guys, because you've seen me. I walk in, my outlines are very simple. They're designed to bring you guys into things that you can talk about, whether or not we're talking about constitutional law, whether or not we're talking about contracts. And yes, I often preface, when we're going to talk about something that I realize you'd rather watch paint dry than listen to me talk about it, we're probably going to talk about it for about 30 minutes instead of an hour and a half, because I'm not going to get much out of you. That doesn't mean that I don't like it. It's just, it doesn't elicit the same. So I have to figure out new ways to bring you guys in, because it's just as important. In fact, in a lot of ways, the things that inspire us the least in terms of learning typically can become the most important, right?
Yeah.
So
as a secondary ed major, like, one of the things I think I've most noticed is how difficult it seems to be at times to get students to buy in and actually pay attention to what you're trying to do.
Sure.
Not saying
your
your students don't, but I'm just saying, like,
some do, some
trying
don't. You
to
get 100
motivate
students
them and get them to focus and want to
Yeah.
be learning and trying to learn.
Yeah.
That day's really
And that a lot of times that doesn't have anything to do with me. It has to do with you.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And but that doesn't keep me from changing my tactics.
No,
You know?
no.
And so yeah. No, I think most of your professors probably recognize that. It's just, I mean, the longer I do this, the more that I realize sometimes you guys are used to having a lot of resources at your fingertips. And sometimes you recognize that so well that you use it in a way that it makes it to where you don't really commit to diving completely in. And so when I teach something, I want you to do the opposite. If I give you additional things, I want it to be additional. I don't want it to be a replacement for what I asked you to do in the beginning.
Yeah.
And so if we can't get over that threshold, especially like the class that you're in, Elliot, I mean, if you remember the first day of class, I say, why are you here? And in reality, that is a core curriculum business class. And so a core curriculum business class, basically, you walk into your advisor and they say, you have to take this. That's the first why. Now, somebody like you have a little more into it than that, right? But that's okay, right? We all have things like that. And so, but my job in that class is even for people that would walk in and just almost standoffishly say, I'm just here because I have to be, is to show you why you have to be there. I mean, we don't just say, hey, you know what? This is a rite of passage. We know it's a waste of your time. That's not it at all. I mean, there's a reason that that's a core curriculum course. And in this particular instance, I can say with absolute conviction that the law isn't everything. I mean, you're a secondary education major, I mean, that enjoys politics. I mean, education and politics makes the news every day. And the constitutionality of any number of things is literally on my Facebook feed almost 3 times a day right now. So, it's definitely applicable. But the thing about it is, and Elliot realizes this, I mean, what's really important is to understand how not to get swept away by what's in that feed every 20 minutes, but instead to be able to form your own views. I don't even want to say opinion, your own views based on what actually is the truth. And this isn't a fake news conversation. It's a, hey, okay, we said this was unconstitutional. Okay, well, what does that mean? I mean, is it really? I mean, we can kind of throw things around and not really think about it, right? And that's okay. I don't want to say that that's reckless. I mean, I think one of the things we talk about as your professors is we want you guys to learn to be more comfortable hearing your own voice. Now, when I say voice, I don't mean your digital voice. I mean hearing what you're doing right now. I mean, clearly you guys don't have that problem because I can't imagine sitting in front of a microphone like this when I was your age. Just would have, that wouldn't have happened. But you guys clearly are comfortable with that. So
Zoom did this to us.
I guess. I don't know.
Restructured our brains.
Yeah, but you're still in person. I mean, you're talking to me.
We are in person recording ourselves.
Yeah, I'm just saying now we're used to microphones and we've had
That's
them
true.
for the last 6 years.
I don't know. I still do Zoom without a microphone.
Do you ever think that potentially as professors or teachers we could get replaced to be more efficient or whatever by AI or some other kind of state-sponsored central form of education where this is just the basics of what you need? You don't need any personalization of the content per se, but just this, and this. We're going to test you here. If you pass, great. If you fail, you don't.
What do you think?
I've had conversations surrounding AI with some people.
What do you mean by AI?
Well, so I know my mom has been worried about the government using AI to basically have a centralized education system where there's like one teacher in say, Washington, who teaches everybody in the country, or we could break this up into each state or even school district. But that teacher doesn't necessarily have to be human, especially as AI advances. Right? So,
but that's what I mean. So what do you mean by not human?
See, I argue that you can't replace humans, but there's some people in this room, looking at you, Jason, who think that AI will just replace humans at everything and can do everything better than humans can, and can, to a certain extent, improve learning, I'm guessing.
Do you want me to elaborate?
Yes, I would.
Hey, everyone. I'm Jason. I'm the host for other episodes, but I'm IT today. Yeah, okay, I'll elaborate on the AI thing. I want to elaborate on something you said, Dr. Ruby said that's very interesting, which is at the start you talked about information and owning your own information.
Yeah.
So I'm super into information theory, and the reason why I think, for example, teaching can largely maybe be replaced by something like AI or centralized information output source, whatever, in the future, is that technology is making information much more accessible, and essentially it's like as a system, teaching as a system will just get to a point where one central best source, whether that be AI, whether that be some sort of online coaching, whatever, will then just disperse information to every individual across society. And so systematically, like speaking, that's where it's headed, right? If you look at ed tech, if you look at just the way, like on a much more metaphysical level, the way people gather information is sort of what I'm trying to say.
Well, so, I mean, I think you're asking a question with lots of different caveats along the way, right? And I think what you are stating is that there is so much information out there that you can derive information from any number of sources. And as a matter of efficiency, if I'm trying to find the answer to this, why don't I just ask the question to my phone and it gives me the answer, right? So, I mean, I think you have to, and this is just my personal thought about this, is that, I mean, I think there are lots of things that I don't know that I'd use it as a function of efficiency as much as just reality, right? I mean, people use resources that they use for whatever reason, and the reliability of those resources can be different for different reasons, right? So if you ask your phone a question, what color is the sky, right? It's going to give you a specific answer, right? But in reality, the sky could be 20 different colors if you ask it at a different time, right? And to me, that's the value of why you're here. The value of an education is understanding things in a way that helps you impact what it is you're doing going forward for yourself. It's not to find the answer. It's not to pass the test. Does that make sense? We may have to have measures to make sure that you're gaining knowledge, but at the end of the day, I mean, if you look at, when I was in law school, I studied at Oxford, and when they explain their education at Oxford, they don't explain it in ways of you're coming here to do a trade. They actually thumb their nose at that. What they would say is that the point of education is to learn how to learn. And so that's what I would say is the problem with that thought process. Not the argument, not the answer. I'm not saying you're wrong, okay? But where that falls short for me is that, and Ellie, you've heard me say this, but the point of my class isn't, don't get me wrong, I want everybody to succeed. And if you don't succeed, that in some ways reflects how I'm teaching you. I take ownership for that. But at the end of the day, my goal is to teach you to be interested enough that you learn. And we're kind of here under the auspices of talking about the Constitution. I'm enjoying this part of the conversation, but my constitutional law professor, the way he explained understanding the Constitution, he viewed it as, and this is, you may roll your eyes about this is going to sound like an old man thing, but he would explain it as like an old man sitting on his front porch and taking this piece of wood, and he would whittle it, and then he'd whittle on it for an hour, and then he'd put it down, and he'd pick it back up, once a week, and he'd spend years kind of whittling. And every time he looked at that piece of wood, he would see different cracks, different characteristics, and different things. And that was his analogy for how he viewed the Constitution. It was, and really, if you think about how, if you really listen to Supreme Court justices talk about their views and their opinions, and they change over time. Because the more you study something, the more you learn how to learn, your view changes. So you can't always say the sky's blue, right? Sometimes it's cloudy. Sometimes when a storm's coming, it's green. And AI is going to kick it out as blue every time. Or if it says something different, the one thing about AI is it's never wrong. Just ask it. Now, does that mean we won't develop technology? I don't know. I mean, that's what I say. I don't want to say and Elliot again knows this because I just keep coming back to you because you've heard me say things like this. I don't know what the future holds. And I will tell you that, even in litigation, if you go to the 10th Circuit right now and you're on an appeal, you've gone through whatever it is at the trial court level, at the district court level, they're going to require you to go through mediation. And part of the mediation is they're going to have run your case through a system that tells you are 80%, there's an 80% likelihood that you're not going to prevail. So do you really want to go all the way through this, or do we want to settle this? So, I mean, there are ways that, now that's not dispositive, right? But it's a way of using AI. So the way I would view what you said is, I don't disagree with what you're saying to the extent that we can use efficiencies, right? And theoretically, just by using all of you have used online textbooks, right?
Yeah.
I mean, an online textbook with an online reading assignment is technically a version of using AI, right?
Yes.
Like a smart book assignment. It requires you to read, and it adjusts questions as you go to essentially get you to read it. That's an efficiency model that I already use in my classes.
I haven't had one of those for like 3 semesters, I think. But I just generally don't like online textbooks because I can't highlight them and stuff.
Well, if you go on your online textbook and you click read the text, the top it says AI assistant, and you're like, I really don't understand this. It will break it down for you and further explain past what the textbook says.
Yeah, I don't trust anything AI says.
You know what? I bet you that's a really good podcast that you guys could have with each other. Huh? No, I think the answer is in the middle, and I don't mean to punt. I really, if you view it that way, that's not what I mean. I just think, again, what I would say to you guys about AI is just, as long as you're owning what it is it's just how you started, why does it matter? And what I would say is that it's all about your resources at that point. So, I guess my question is that if you were sitting in my class, would you trust ChatGPT or would you trust me? You don't have to answer that, by the way. Well, and Elliot definitely doesn't need to answer that. But you know what I'm saying? How often? Be honest with yourself.
I trust you over ChatGPT because I think ChatGPT is rigged.
Well, it is, but not necessarily against you. But I watch my daughter's a junior in high school, and she is as intelligent as they come, especially when it comes to math. And she will come home and talk about, well, I didn't like the way my teacher explained this, but I really like the way ChatGPT just gave me the answer, and I'm like, well, okay, but I want you to know how to get the answer. That's the point. And maybe that's why you're frustrated with your lesson of the day, is that your instructor was actually requiring you. That was the point. It wasn't for you to get the answer. It was for you to actually learn how to do it.
I guess to respond, I completely agree with you. I think what I'm really trying to say is, I'm not a fan of sitting in class and listening, basically. I think I get what you mean when you say we're coming here, let's say to school, learning education. What we're really trying to do is build the proper mental model to be able to learn, grow, develop, and think independently. Yeah. Right, and much more. And I think, for example, conversing with professors, talking like this, debating with people, that's what helps with that. I'm just trying to criticize the part where you have to sit in class and listen and there's not really much interaction going on, and there's not really much of a Socratic teaching method going on.
Well, I've actually
Ruby's classes straight
I was going to say,
Socratic.
come to
It's
my
great.
class. I wouldn't call it.
I already took business last
I would
Saturday.
not call it so. Well, come to take property law. It's not Socratic. But I give you the opportunity. And at the end of the day, the reason I do it that way is because you can't learn it without hearing yourself say it. So if I am the one saying it, that doesn't do you a lot of good. And it certainly doesn't do you a lot of good, at least in the topic that I teach. Now, I'm not, everybody's got their own way, so don't extrapolate this beyond how I teach. But, I don't use a lot of visual presentations. And the reason is because if I gave that to you, rather than listening to me or your classmates, you're going to make sure that, by gosh, you're going to get those bullets. You have no idea what they mean, but that's what you're going to study for the exam. You're still not going to know what they mean. So rather than give you the bullets, I even offer, if you want PowerPoint slides, you come to my office hours and I will help you make them. But do not use that as a substitute for everything that we're talking about.
I like how interactive your class is and how you ask questions in class. And I like when you draw on the board and you draw these diagrams. They help me understand so much more than the textbook does. I very much
there are
appreciate
so
those.
many people that know me well that would laugh at the fact that something that I would write with my hand or draw would help somebody because my handwriting is just awful. But yeah, I appreciate that. I do. I'm a picture guy, so that's why I do that.
It just makes a lot more sense than
The law in pictures.
So going way back to your constitutional metaphor of the wood whittler or whatever.
Did you like that one though, or was that a little off for you?
I want to know, like, I can see a world where that makes sense. I just want to know, like, what everything is supposed to mean. So, like,
Oh my gosh, you just asked me what everything is supposed to mean.
well, regarding that,
You have a lot
so, like,
more faith in me than me.
Is the whittler like the Supreme Court, like just taking up, one case after another regarding some aspect of it over time? Is it supposed to be the founding fathers, like every day, like after caucusing or whatever at the tavern in Philadelphia, changing stuff at night? Like,
And I bet you know what that was called.
well,
Sorry, I interrupted you. Sorry. Keep going.
no, but I think I've been there. It's like City Tavern or something. It's like on 2nd Street, maybe.
I don't know where it is, but yeah.
I went there in 5th grade for some Sunday trip thing. It was stupid, I thought. But anyway,
Okay.
that may not be the right one, but that's a tavern downtown. But yeah, I can see multiple scenarios where that makes sense. And like, especially through the Supreme Court lens, like over time, we kind of notice new things now. And also, especially as amendments are added, that kind of adds some character or whatever to the original Constitution.
So I think I know where you're going. Let me see. So to understand the Constitution is way more complex and way more simple than any of us really contemplate. Okay? So let's start with the simple, right? I mean, the Constitution is literally the framework of our government with some rights that we can't do without, right? I mean, I don't mean that to be flippant, but is that a...
No.
I mean, if I'm going to explain the Constitution in 10 seconds, that's kind of what it is, right?
That's a great explanation for a second grader or something.
Okay, yeah. And I love the second grade explanation. I need the second grade explanation a lot, actually. But if we go to the first part, okay, what is that? When we put the structure of the government together, what does it actually mean? It means that we have an executive branch, a legislative branch, and a judicial branch, period, with an open end at the end to say, hey, we can change this when we want, right?
Yes.
And we tend to overcomplicate that a lot. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
It's called politics. We as humans,
Yeah.
just our human nature, we complicate things quite a bit. Like if we just sat down as a second grader and said, this is what the president's supposed to do, this is what the legislature's supposed to do, this is what the Supreme Court's supposed to do. in second grade, that'd be a whole lot easier to figure out than sitting here right now, right?
That'd be
Yes.
easier, and there's some things where it's quite clear on that, but then you
Well,
get to
clear for you may not be clear to somebody else, right?
I guess.
Just turn the news on.
I don't have a copy in front of me, but like there's some powers that are quite explicitly given to each branch.
That's
there's
right.
others that we've kind of come up with that are implied, like judicial review and.
Well, they're not
such.
implied. They are part of the law. But we'll get there. We'll get there. So let's go to but the beauty of it is they all have the ability to check each other, right?
Yes.
Okay. The beauty is they all have the ability, the checks and balances, right? So we have the executive branch that checks the legislature by having the ability to veto laws, right? We have the legislative branch that has the ability to determine certain things that the executive branch can't, but also the executive branch's appointments to the court have to be confirmed by the legislature, correct?
Yes.
And other bureaucratical.
Well,
stuff.
let's just keep it simple.
No, okay.
There's lots of checks, in other words, right? And I mean that's really where I want to go. Is that it's pretty clear, and then you have the court, and the court has probably made more news in the last 5 or 6, 7 years than at any point in my lifetime, right? And that's really why, and Elliot knows this. I really stop and require you guys to pay a lot of attention to what those people are actually saying.
So in class, we did watch Justice Barrett's interview, and we also occasionally will watch the news if something's happening. So what do you think the value is of staying informed, just as of like what's happening with the constitutional law and that sort of
I mean, I
aspect?
think, and that's the point is, so, I mean, and it's not just interviews, right? I mean, and it's almost, I would almost call it constitutional mentorship a little bit. And I'm not trying to say that I'm picking mentors for you. I mentioned my time at Oxford. I mean, Justice Breyer was actually one of my instructors at Oxford. And so I really got to pick his brain. And he actually wrote a book not too long ago that frankly took me 6 months to finish because it's pretty dense. But, that changes my perspective on what the court is and what it's supposed to be. I watched Ketanji Brown Jackson in an interview a year ago, right? I haven't shown you guys that in class, but I talked about it. When I listened to her talk about what she thinks the court is and what it should be and what, and then you listen to Justice Barrett, and at the end of the day, they really don't say it a whole lot differently. They may have different opinions, and they certainly have different ways of interpreting the Constitution, right? So, I mean, that's one of the basic things that we talk about in class is that, there's an originalist or textualist, way to interpret the Constitution that says, this is what the Founding Fathers say, and this is it. And then you have the more progressive or living Constitution model that says, well, there's no way they had any idea that this was going to happen, so how do we adjust, right? And what we talk about in class is that, most of the decisions that are made by the Supreme Court actually are unanimous. They actually agree quite a bit. And one of the reasons that I show you guys in class is they all will point that out. They're all friends. They don't, even if they speak towards each other with what they would call a sharp pen, if you will, and people kind of, think that that's throwing shade. Ooh, they really called them out there. They don't view it that way. Right? They really don't. And you can take them for their word, right? And the other thing is that you can never underestimate just the value of the pure intellect that those people have. I mean, the ability of those people sitting in those chairs to retain information would blow your mind. I mean, it almost would frustrate you. Especially, we're at the debate club. I would not want to debate one of the justices because they would remember things that it would just blow your mind. But I think it's important to understand that textualist doesn't mean conservative Republican. Okay? I mean, it just doesn't mean that. And it doesn't mean it, and the reason I say that is it doesn't mean it to the judges themselves. If you want to be results oriented about how you think about things, then sure. I mean, you can politicize a lot of things that way, right? I mean, there's a lot of people in this country that live and die by their politics, whether or not you're talking about religion or court precedent or education, or I mean, there's politics in everything if you let it, right? And that's one of the things that I don't underestimate the value of politics. I pay attention to politics just like the next guy. But there is a difference between politics and constitutional law, right? There is not politics in everything. And that's one of the things that Justice Barrett, the value of lifetime appointments is that Justice Barrett frankly doesn't want to pay attention to the mob, if you will. She sees that as the value of her job, is that that's not what she's supposed to do. Yeah. So back to your question of, okay, does it really model the whittler of the wood? And I would say yes, because let's just involve how the court would. I mean, let's say that. I mean, I know everybody talks about right now, well, we have a conservative majority in the court and things like that. Well, I mean, it's not always going to be like that. And there are times in our history that the Supreme Court has entered opinions that were wrong, and they've had to egregiously wrong sometimes. And sometimes we don't even know how egregious or not egregious they are until some time passes, right? I mean, so I don't think we always know. And what I try to talk about in our business law class is, rather than try to figure out whether or not the law, whether or not it be a statute or an executive order or a Supreme Court opinion, whether or not we agree with it. I mean, how do we learn to live our lives within it, if that makes sense? Yeah. And I think that's really important, because then you extrapolate that back to the Constitution and you say, okay, what is it? If you really want to focus on it, what is it? Is the legislature really doing what they're supposed to do, right? I've heard several really smart people. I don't know if you guys know who John Meacham is, but I listened to John Meacham. He wrote the book on the soul of the country, and that was one of the news clips that I played in class. He would argue that the legislature is the one that's not doing their job right now, because even back when Lincoln, and I asked everybody, it's a fairly new movie to me, but the movie Lincoln, I asked our class if anybody had seen it, and not many people had. And I've always appreciated that movie because it really shows how hard it was for Lincoln to do what we now think, gosh, why was that so hard? I mean, he really had to fight with the legislature to make things happen. And what Meacham would argue right now, it's the opposite. It's that the legislature actually won't do things without executive approval first. Now, whether or not that's true or not, it's not necessarily my opinion. But there are people that challenge different parts of the way our Constitution sets things up. And I think when I talk about mentorship, you don't have to have somebody that, is interested in your day-to-day to have, it's kind of like thought mentorship, right? I mean, I don't know that I necessarily agree with what I just said, but I don't know that I don't either. I don't know when I'm going to need that, right? But it impacted my perspective enough to share it with you. There's my piece of wood. That makes sense?
Yeah, I think so. I would actually somewhat agree with that the legislature isn't doing its job. Because, I mean, if you look historically, within the two parties, there's always been a decent amount of overlap ideologically, and now just from an ideological standpoint, the Democratic Party has become the party of the liberals. The Republican Party is now almost entirely conservatives, and there's no negotiating overlap there. And so now, as politics are increasingly nationalized, to retain your seat in a primary requires almost the approval of whoever is in charge of your party. At this point, it's Trump for the Republicans. It was Joe Biden before he wasn't before his term ended. And so you have, because they'll get primaried if they don't do what the president or whoever in charge has said. I mean, this has been done with Thomas Massey and other Republicans. I think Mitt Romney might have been threatened with the primary before he retired. And it just kind of roadblocks crossing the aisle and actually working on stuff in a logically constitutional way.
Well, I mean, I think the part that we miss a little bit, right? And Elliot, again, we talk about this a little bit in class, is that the one true way that the people actually are in charge all the time is who they vote for. And so when you say things like that, we kind of tend to point our finger at, oh, well, this is a power struggle and this is a results-oriented thing. But at the end of the day,
if you don't want them, you don't vote them in.
Exactly. And I think that's really, this isn't constitutional, but I think that's really the biggest part of the struggle of the country right now is sometimes we look in the mirror and we don't like what we see. And instead of figuring out that, there are ways to change things, we just kind of think there isn't a way. So, and I actually, I think about thought mentorship, right? So one of the best kind of keynote addresses at a silly banquet I've ever been to was one of the speechwriters for President Clinton. And he just went on and on about how President Clinton's true skill, like his true north skill, was that he could walk into a room full of people and not know anything about them, not know what their backgrounds were. And after an hour of being with them, he'd know what every single person in that room needed to hear to feel good about what was going on. And some people would say, oh, well, gosh, that means he's fake. But if you think about it, and I'm not standing up for his politics, this isn't this isn't a conservative liberal comment. But the reason that I vote for people is I know that at least I believe that they hear me. Right?
That should be what fundamentally drives the vote, yeah.
And even if he's doing it for the reason to get elected, at least he's listening. And so I wonder if we actually think about how we vote right now. I mean, and granted, this is, I would advocate for, that some of the most important elections really are for city council and for the mayor and for your local representative long before they are for, and why is that? Because when I vote for those people, I can pick up the phone and they know who I am, right?
Yeah.
It's not that, and that's, the other thing, you guys inspired me to bring, my Supreme Court mug in. I mean, I tell students all the time, if you haven't been to Washington, D.C., you need to go. And not just to go see the buildings, go make appointments with your representatives, because what you'll realize is that they're just one person, and they're pretty smart. They're pretty organized. They want to do the right thing. Sometimes they need to know what it is you think the right thing is, and I think if we all ask ourselves the question, how many times have we may be unhappy about something, but we almost live in the unhappy rather than realizing that we can impact the process quite a bit more than we do.
Yeah. I do wish, excuse me, that people voted in their local and state elections more like...
Sure.
I think there were a couple elections in the spring of last year that got like 5% turnout here in Stillwater, if that.
Sure.
And like they have...
And we actually have pretty good voter turnout comparatively in Stillwater to other municipalities. That's what's even more amazing.
I mean, regardless, it's just stunning to me how little people know or care about their local politics, even though that's what
But
affects
the
them
great,
the
but
most
the great
day
part
to day.
about it is, you know why it's great? Because it's not political when you get to that point. Like I elect a city councilor because I want to make sure that the roads are done the right way. Or,
Yeah, like
or
oftentimes
that, yeah,
it's a competence matter.
yeah. It's just
not necessarily
we
can
need
you
we need
do
to
your
get
job.
things done, right?
Yeah.
And so, anyways, yeah. I mean, but I think you guys understanding that is a big deal to me. So, yeah.
So I actually do have a AI overview from Google, and it says that local voter turnout is generally 15% to 27% in the United States, just for any general local election. So
That's a big range.
that is a very big range,
That
15 to 27.
So
that still seems too high to me.
So as we talked about in class, Elliot, so 15 to 27% of the people are deciding how this goes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the true beauty of the Constitution is that it was framed with the idea that they may not have known what they were doing. Future generations were going to know what they needed better. So it's open. And one of the things that we contemplated in class was that there hasn't been an amendment in a very, very, very long time to the Constitution, right?
Yes.
So when, and I'm not saying there needs to be, right? But if we are a country that was founded on the idea that we were going to know better, we have a flexible form to do, and yet 27% at the most participate in that process. Does that work?
No.
Well, I don't know if it does. I think it does. It obviously does because we are here and a part of it. But maybe the right question is, should it be working better? And if it could.
It would represent more people if more people did vote.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's why you see people, and I mean, I think that's we're doing this podcast the week after Charlie Kirk was killed, right? And the thing about Charlie Kirk, politics aside, he clearly reached, I mean, and I explained this to Elliot, I mean, and just full disclosure, I mean, I knew who he was, but I had no idea how important he was to people, right? I had no idea. And it's not that I disagree or, there's not an opinion about it. I just was fascinated to kind of see the impact that he had. And where I'm at with it right now is I tend to really appreciate the fact that he was able to find you guys. Now, I'm not saying he found you guys individually, right? But that's a good thing. That's it's an important thing that I hope happens, whether or not, forget about the ideals of it, but it motivates you guys, right? And I hope that continues to happen. And I don't know if it will. And again, if somebody's like listening to a snippet of this, there's no politics in anything I just said.
Yeah.
It's the recognition of you saying 27% of the people that are eligible participate, right?
Elections.
And I would imagine that if you plugged it back in, you'd find that people from 18 to 25 are probably a pretty low percentage, right? And that's too bad because, and I think you guys sometimes are, and I mean, we've all been that age. I mean, your mind's in different places. Sometimes people just don't feel like they know enough. Whatever the reason is, there's a reason not to, right? And I think what I tend to say about the framers of our Constitution is that if they recognized their imperfections about what they knew, then why aren't we okay with ours? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's okay if you vote the wrong way. We're not, one of those great rights of the Constitution in the Bill of Rights is, right to a fair trial, right? We're not going to convict you of a crime for making a vote that you regret, right? So, but anyways, did you look that up, Elliot?
So I'm actually trying to find something reliable. The Census Bureau doesn't have anything good.
Don't use the census website is absolutely
Yeah,
bad.
it's not working great. I'm looking for like a reliable resource because it's only Fox News right now.
Yeah.
But regardless, so what if we went back to
Nobody's fact checking us that I'm aware of, Elliot.
I
so.
know, but I'm just
The-
trying to find.
what if we went back to the state legislature election of senators and allocation of electoral votes based on that? Would that be a net good or bad? Because that should increase local election attention and turnout. Because
I don't know.
that is how it was back in the Founders' Day, at least in some states, as I'm aware, is you would vote for your local rep who would go to Williamsburg or Philadelphia or wherever the state capital was, and then vote for the electors for the presidency and the Senate.
Yeah,
there.
I don't know. But, I mean, I only know that I know when to vote, how to vote. And that's really, I mean, whether or not that would impact other people, I don't know. But I'm willing to listen to what, you almost have to find out what's keeping people from doing things. And, you hear, I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there right now about, changing lines and gerrymandering and, all that stuff, right?
Which is constitutional, regardless of its ethicality.
And it's not new, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not, and I don't really want to go completely down that hole, but a lot of the things that we talk about, this isn't the first time we've talked about it.
Yeah.
And I say we collectively as a country. There's very few really unique ideas that haven't been, and that's the other thing I would say in my class, and that I think it's really unique that you're from Philadelphia because, and again, I think John Meacham said this too, is that we really need to lean on history just a little bit more than we do sometimes. Because how do we know that we've already had this conversation before? History.
Well, yeah, you don't.
But if you don't know,
yeah,
then you don't know, and we just continue to do the same thing, right? Whereas if we would have known, and so again, that's one of the things that I really enjoy and derive from getting to listen to Supreme Court justices is that their wisdom doesn't just come from history; it comes from their absolute photographic knowledge of everything they've ever read from the Supreme Court. Anyways, so yeah.
I have the statistic now. This
Okay.
is the Pew Research Center. Citizens under 30 constituted only 15% of all votes in 2024.
Which I don't know what that means percentage-wise for
for-
the total population, but
I'm trying to find something. It's really hard to find these statistics.
yeah.
like
Sure,
30%
sure.
of 30% of those under 30 voted.
So it says that like per their age group, it should be 20%, but only 15% voted.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the point is that
20%
both parties clearly in election cycles view younger voters as growth potential, and there's a reason for that, right? There are people that didn't vote before that they want to get to the polls to vote for them. So whether or not we have statistics at our fingertips right now, I think the activity of both parties shows you that the younger demographic vote is something they're after because it's a pure gain proposition, right?
Yeah. Don't
So-
forget the
Yes.
libertarians too, and
I
communists.
should just be
do they
party
know
neutral,
nothing's
right?
exist?
Yeah.
I don't. Well, I'm just saying. There's
Yeah.
a lot of parties.
Yeah.
There's Teddy Roosevelt's Bull Moose Party. I don't know if that's
Sure,
still
sure.
around.
I will look that up.
There's the Green Party. The Tea Party doesn't exist.
You're getting way beyond anything I have an understanding about with that.
That
Yeah.
But
It's good though.
there's more than two parties. You don't have to pick
That's
one of
true.
the two.
It
That's true.
disbanded a few decades ago. The
Did
Bull
it?
Moose
Okay.
Party is no longer a
Okay.
thing.
Oh,
It may
know
be
nothing's
somewhere.
around.
I don't think so.
See, that was fun too. Like, I'm right now reading a book about Abraham Lincoln and his cabinet before before Lincoln was nominated for president and elected president, and before they became the cabinet that, in a lot of ways, held the country together. And it's fascinating the disintegration and shifting among the Whigs and the Democrats at that time in the 1850s, and the Know Nothings, and the Free Soilers, and I believe there may have been just a pure abolitionist party. Like just the way the inter-party structure and restructuring.
So this has been a great discussion. Thank you so much for coming to talk with us,
Well, it's
Professor
my
Ruby.
pleasure. Yeah, anytime. I appreciate people that want to have discussions like this. So